Okay, so this past week was mainly focused on experimentation, and there were three things that I mainly experimented with. The first one was the title. This was something that started off. This is something that's been bugging me for a while. I started off with Die 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 Again, moved on to Time Race, messed around with Ahead of the Times and Time's Too Slow, titles which in retrospect I really think are dreadful, but it's experimentation. And I well, I experimented with the paradox alternative, which is what I settled for. The the rest of the experimentation was mostly there for me personally to find out what to find to for me to find what the best title is. It was mainly because I was struggling with it. Die 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 Again was a title from a bygone concept. It's like the title Die 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 Again came from the original concept, which was more focused on Groundhog Day and Edge of Tomorrow, films like that where they're in a time loop. It was that sort of concept mixed with American Animals, and it just, for me, like, it completely ditched the Groundhog Day approach. However, you could say even, well, no, you can't really say ditch the American Animals approach yet, but sort of in some ways. The title, I wanted to reflect something more than just it's sci-fi or what's this is catchy. I tried Time Race, which was play on space race and other things like that, and that one was working, but I thought it could be better because it didn't give off the right tone. Like it felt more like a race through time than a race to time travel. It felt more like a campy, over the top sci-fi film rather than a more grounded drama sci-fi film. Ahead of the Times and Time's Too Slow, I don't even know why I thought of them. They just sound not only ridiculous, but they just I don't think they work at all anymore. The paradox alternative was one I came up with based on the fact that two characters are paradoxes, and I thought it'd be fun to experiment with that. I need to actually add on a bibliography. The reason I haven't got one yet on there is because the software I'm using here, Google Docs, is not the software that I use most of the time. Usually I use Word when I'm at college, but I don't have access to Word at home, so I put everything on Google Drive and open it through Google Docs. So right now, there's no way for me to add citations or add a bibliography. But yeah, Paradox Alternative was the one I settled on because of the paradox characters later on, the way it gives off more of a sci-fi feel to it without seeming overly cheesy or insincere. And it does to me seem a little bit on the side of, well, there's false advertising. There's quite a large portion of the film where we don't really know that there's paradox versions of the characters. It's not really a large portion, but there is a good chunk of it. And to that, it's just, we've seen other films like Batman vs Superman that feel like they've got misleading titles. So it's not like it's uncommon, and for me, I can justify it to where then it's not common. Or it's not a what's the word? Apologies. Where it's not misleading. Sorry. I looked into the word time as well. I searched into IMDb. Got a lot of stuff with phrases involving time, but not a lot like Time Race that sort of combine or that sort of make up a phrase with time. The next thing I experimented on was my one F-bomb. I've gone for the 12A certificate, the PG-13 rating, so I only want to have one F-bomb. I know 12As can use up to 5. I want to use one because I believe in the power of the word. It's something in 12A rated films, whenever I see it, that it adds a lot more intrigue. I want to see, oh, how do they use that word? How is it used to the most its most effective, like to its biggest effect? So I experimented with a few uses here. As you may notice, I've actually written some screenplay out. I was going to write on Celtex. I had some problems with the ad blocker software at college, on the college Wi-Fi. At home, or at least on my mobile data, I can access it just fine. But at college, sorry, I can't access it. So what I did, I asked screenwriting subreddit if Write to Do It is used by professionals. I got 12 responses, and screenwriters. The general consensus is not only do screenwriters use Write to Do It over Celtex. Celtex is apparently really outdated. Like, Celtex hasn't been relevant for at least 10 years. A lot of comments say the tool is irrelevant, and professionals don't commonly use exclusively web-based tools like Celtex. So a lot of the general responses said, look, use Write to Do It. It's like Celtex was left behind years ago by better software. So I decided to move over to Write to Do It, which I just so happened to close. My mistake. But yeah, I'll ignore this. But yeah, so Write to Do It, I decided to move over to Write to Do It. I experimented with my one F-bomb. This really helped because it gave me a sort of understanding as to where I would put it. However, later things that have happened, which I'll explain later, have sort of given me a different perspective. But it did help to have sort of an idea. Okay, this is where it could go. And it really did as well get me back into the swing of writing. Because it has been a while since I've written a screenplay. I think I've written a 5-page horror screenplay in the last few months. But apart from that, it hasn't really been much. So writing out these little extracts, it helped. But yeah, I started experimenting with my one use of an F-bomb. And to me, it works. These moments that I've come up with are good. It's just they're not the best. Like, I feel like, to me right now, they just seem a little bit forced. However, if they're used in context of the screenplay, when the rest of the story is there to back it up, it may help. So yeah, after that, I moved on to my exposition. This is the one where I've only messed with a few little things. I don't really want to add more to the exposition because I feel like that's something that I should naturally weave into the story. It should be something that I naturally weave in when I feel like it's needed. Not, okay, yeah, I need exposition here, I need exposition here, I need exposition here. No, it should be one of those things where I'm writing and I say, oh, okay, that's where it's needed. Also, a little visual thing that I started doing, the scene headers, I've now started making bold. To me, it just makes them stand out, and as you'll see in a minute, it makes it look a lot better on the page. So, the exposition, it helped, because it made me realise, especially with this first one, that I shouldn't be lumping all the exposition together, and it really helped me to really hopefully make my characters more natural or naturalistic sounding. So after experimenting with these, I do want to mess around with loglines a little bit. I might set aside some time just to play around with loglines, but I do want to put the rest of my focus purely on my screenplay, which is what I have started. As you can see here, I have begun writing. This was done over 3 days right now. I think I did 10 pages on the first day, 5 on the second, and now I've done up to 17. So it's not that ridiculously far in. As you can tell by the treatment, it is still in the first act. However, this treatment is not one that's going anywhere. This is just purely for me personally. It's just a checklist for me. it sort of allows me to see where I am in terms of my page counts. Because to me, I don't want my screenplays to feel overly long. I don't want it to get to about, like halfway in and be like, right, come on, pick up the pace a little bit. So right now, I'm currently hitting my target. From the first act, I hit my target like once, and then the other times, I think I've sort of averaged it out. Like, these two average out so that they're on target. I'm only half a page behind here, but I wrote like 2.5 extra pages here. But I also cut back that one. I also cut this sequence. So it does ultimately balance out that I'm on target. However, for me, the system just works. It works to keep me on track. I feel like it's a good checklist. It shows what's ahead of me, what I'm going to be writing next, and yes, hopefully it's going to look really nice when it's finished. Really colourful. I don't really want to see too many of these. I've only cut a scene here because I feel like, because I've substituted it in with a different thing. Like, the scene is to show Connor getting rejected by a bunch of investors. So, and as we learn in the earlier on in the first act, in the second scene we get, that Connor has purchased the blueprints illegally. So if he goes through to investors, they might catch up on that, or they might catch him out on that. So, wrong side. Yeah, here it is. So I've included it in the scene where the dean shuts down the project. Wrong button. I've had the dean say about how friends up in Jaren Corp have heard or have found out that their documents have been leaked and they've fired a guy for it. So, and this sort of does a little bit of damage to Connor. He's like, oh crap! Like, I've probably caused someone to lose their job, rightfully, or whether that person was the character responsible, or whether it was someone else. And as I mentioned earlier, my one use of an F-bomb, it was something that I decided it should come naturally. Like, as I was writing, it something that came naturally. I initially, while writing, had it here, where instead of saying shit, it would say the F word. So I decided to put this later on because I thought there'd be a more powerful moment for it. But this is some line that hopefully will, like, I may end up changing it. I might include it in a different line instead. I definitely don't want to break my more than one rule. I definitely want to keep it to just one because I want it to be powerful. And this one reminds me of an awful lot of The Martian. There's a scene where Matt Damon's character is freaking out and he like screams it a few times, but they have to like mute the audio so it could maintain the PG-13 rating. I haven't seen the director's cut, which I know is a 15, so I kind of want to check that out because the book is more accurate. The book is like more of a R-rated project, but that's besides the point. The film, it has this moment where Matt Damon's screaming out the F word and they have to mute the audio, but I still wanted to capture that same power, which is why I've included it at a slightly different moment.